Hey everybody, I'm Steve and I am so excited to have the opportunity to bring this video series to you. We are going to take a look at the new Radiomaster TX16S and we are going to take it through its paces. In this video series, we're going to start from zero and we're going to learn basics like adding a new model and binding the radio to a receiver. And then we're going to add some functionality such as adding a arm switch and flight modes and a buzzer. And then we're going to take it up a notch even more and we're going to add voice cues. So for example, you know what flight mode you're in without having to look down at the radio. From there, we are going to take a deep dive into the menus and we're going to use a practical example that'll be a huge benefit to you in addition to the learning experience. By the end of the series, I'm going to incorporate functionality into the radio that will allow us to tune our 9 PIDs in flight while using only 3 switches on the radio and have audio cues so that we never ever have to look down from our quads. Now there's an existing way to do this using the Betaflight Lewis scripts, but when I've done it that way in the past, I still feel like I spend a substantial time looking down at my radio, making my way through the menus, as opposed to not ever having to look down from the radio. With this 3-switch methodology, we are going to actually combine it with the Betaflight Lewis scripts so that you can not only tune your PIDs in flight without ever having to look down, but then when you have an opportunity to look down, you can use the Betaflight Lewis scripts to see exactly where you're at and to save your changes. It's kind of the best of both worlds. And at the end of it all, we will have taken such a deep dive into the menus, you will have a crystal clear understanding of inputs, mixes, outputs, special functions, logical switches, and probably 90% of what the radio will do. So, stick around. So, let's take a quick look at the radio and see some of this functionality in use. All right, so acknowledging the fact that this video is for beginners, I still think it's very important for beginners to have a good understanding as to how powerful the radio is that they're holding in their hands right now and how this radio can actually save you from a crash with the voice cues that you can incorporate in your radio. Knowing what flight mode you're in is incredibly important because, say for example, you're flying along in angle mode. And then someday you get to the point where you're ready to move up to horizon mode. And you're flying around in horizon mode and things get a little bit squirrely and you want to throw your switch back into angle mode and you throw the switch the wrong way and you end up in acro mode. But you didn't have the voice cue, so you have no idea that you're in acro mode and things get tremendously worse and before you know it, your quad is in a million pieces. So if you're flying in horizon mode and you want to be in angle mode, it's good to know that you're in angle mode, right? Here's another important one to know, whether you're armed or disarmed. Okay, so that one's important. I've taken a giant step further by incorporating these 3 switches into PID control so that I can tune my pits in flight. And I know, say for example, I want to tune my roll proportional. Roll proportional. Or my roll integral. Roll integral. Or my roll derivative. Roll derivative. Or my pitch derivative. Pitch derivative. Or my yaw derivative. Yaw derivative. You know, it doesn't matter. I mean, these are 3-position switches and there are 9 pits to tune, so the combination of these 2 give me all 9, and then I use this 3rd switch to make my incremental changes. And that is the case study that we're going to use throughout this entire series so that you can get deep into the menus of this radio, and by the end of it all, you're going to understand inputs, mixes, outputs, logical switches, special functions. So stick around. It's going to get really, really great, but having said all that, let's get back to basics. All right, all that other stuff in due time, but what we've got to do is we've got to dial it back to 0 and start from the very beginning. And the very beginning, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a model to our radio. So I just kind of want to call your attention to this scroll wheel right here. Not only is it a scroll wheel, but it's a button. I can press it, but in this case I'm going to need to long press it to bring up the model select. Now if you see, if I scroll through, I can scroll through by turning the wheel, okay? But what I'm going to do is highlight model select and get to this, and now I want a new model. We're going to start fresh, so I'm going to long hold again and I get an opportunity to create a model. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, this is kind of goofy because you can't see it right now. I can barely see it, but one of these is highlighted and the other one is not. Currently the plane is highlighted. It's just white on a yellow background. You'll be able to see it a lot better on your own radio, but for the purpose of the video, you can't really see that plane is highlighted. So it's set up for plane. There's no multi-rotor yet, but I'm just going to go ahead and select plane. And it is white print on yellow background. If I turn it this much, white print on yellow background, it says, does your model have a motor? Well, yeah, our model does have a motor. And what channel is it on? Well, we're running Betaflight, so AETR, that's throttle. It is on channel 3, so we're good to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and page ahead here. And it says number of ailerons on your model. Well, we only have one. So I've got to select it, get it blinking, and then I'm just going to say 1. Now, aileron, remember, you're going to commit to memory AETR, which is aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder. Our aileron is channel 1 because it's on the A. AETR, yes, our aileron is channel 1. So let's page through. And do we have flaps? No, we do not have flaps. Moving on. And pick the tail configure of your model. Well, it's thinking it's an airplane, but essentially what we're going to want is we're going to want an elevator and we're going to want a rudder. And our elevator, AE, is on channel 2, and TR, our rudder, is on channel 4. So this is actually all set up pretty darn good. Pretty good. All right, so motor is 3. That's RT. Aileron is 1, AETR. That is set up the way it needs to be. I can exit out of here. Once it finishes up with the wizard there, you can see that it's added model 12. We've got a little check by model 12 and we're good to go. So we can hit the return button to go back to the main menu, and then there's our model 12. So one thing I want you to do is this big silver button here, big silver button here. This is model. This is system. I want you to think of these as folders in like Windows. For example, if you click on the folder, you're going to be presented with a whole bunch of more folders, and you can just dig deeper and deeper and deeper. All right, we're going to mess with the model right now, so we are going to long click the model button. And we are now in model setup. And if you remember, I was talking about once you click in it, you've got a whole bunch of options. These are the screens that throughout the course of this video series, we're going to learn just about everything there is to know. All right, so let's get back to model setup. And as you can see, it's pre-made as it's pre-set up as model 12. We've got our scroll wheel here. Model 12 is fully highlighted, which means that that is the field that has the focus. And if we click on it, now we have the opportunity to start modifying the field. So I don't want to call it model 12. I'm going to call it quad 1. So I'm going to use the scroll wheel and I'm going to go to Q. And then once I find my Q, I'm going to click it to go to the next one. And it's on O, and I want to go to U. So there's U. Now, if you want capital letters, you just hold it down and it'll pull up the capital letter. There's a D. I want an A. So A, I'm going to hold it down. And then there's an E. I want a D. I'm going to hold it down. And then here I want a space. So I don't remember where the space is, but I'll find it. There it is. So space, there's the 1. I want to keep my 1, so I'm just going to go ahead and click. The 2, I don't want the 2. All right, so moving right along, you've got to click again, and you just got to kind of be careful here because you'll find yourself in a little loop if you go too far. But at some point, the whole thing's going to be highlighted again. And there it is. All right, so now the next thing we want to do is with quad 1 highlighted, I can scroll the wheel to get to the next field. Now the field is selected. Now the field has the focus, but it's not selected. So let's go ahead and click on it so that it's selected. And here we're presented with a whole bunch of preloaded images that came on our SD card, but I have added my own. And that's another thing I'm going to cover. It's nothing special, but it's just a silly picture of one of my own quads flying in the air. And I'm going to pick quad SS. And then the rest of these items here, you can set timers. Say, for example, your battery lasts 10 minutes and you want to set a timer for 8 so you know when to come back. I'm not going to do anything with timers right now, but I am going to scroll down because in order to bind our craft, that is also on this menu, very, very important field, you're going to want to come down to internal RF mode, okay? All right, unless you're using a module in the back of your radio, something like Crossfire or something like that, you're going to use the internal. Chances are if you're a beginner, you're going to be using the internal. If you're using Crossfire or something that requires that module, then you're going to be using the external. But for now, let's do internal. So it is selected off right now. I'm going to click it and I'm going to slide the wheel over 1 to get multi. And I'm going to select multi by clicking. And then I'm going to move over 1 more and it's already on Fly Sky, but I don't want Fly Sky. I need FR Sky. Not that FR Sky, that FR Sky. With FR Sky selected, I'm gonna click on it. All right, so the first receiver that I have here is you can barely see it, it's in here, it's a FR Sky D4R, which happens to be a D8 protocol. So I'm gonna come over here with FR Sky selected, I'm gonna move over to the D16, and I'm gonna select D8, like so. Now, I am going to come down a little bit more. You see where it says module update recommended? That is something that we're going to do in an upcoming video. It's not something that we need to worry about right this minute. All right, so I am going to say that this is receiver number 1, and I'm going to go to bind, and in order to bind, I am going to need something to press the failsafe button on the receiver, and I'm going to need to be ready with a battery. All right, and it's pretty simple. You just hit bind, make sure you come over here, get the failsafe button, and add power. And you can see that the green and the red light are both on, with one of them blinking. The red one's blinking, the green one's solid. So I jump back off the power, and then when I repower it back up, telemetry recovered. You can see that the receiver is now green. You heard her say telemetry recovered. Between the green light and her saying telemetry recovered, we know that we have successfully bound to this quad. Binding to an FR Sky D16 is the same pretty much exact procedure. You just make sure you select D16 there. All right, so that's going to finish things up here for this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the little bell so that you get notifications of future videos when they come out, because this is just one of many, many videos that we are going to take an in-depth look at this radio. As mentioned before, we're going all the way with this thing. All right, so in the next video, we're going to do something very, very important. We're going to add the 3 beta flight modes, and we're going to add an arm switch. So the video 2 exercise is going to give us some experience with the inputs channel and some experience with the mixes channel. And then we're just going to keep going and going and going. And by the end of this video series, you're going to have so much knowledge about this radio, you are not going to know what to do with yourself. But you got to subscribe, you got to stick around, and I will see you in the next video.